Senate Republicans have blocked two pieces of legislation that would require campaigns to report any attempts by foreign entities to interfere in an election, as well as a measure that would protect personal accounts and devices of senators and staffers from hackers.
That move came just hours after former special counsel Robert Mueller testified that Russian interference is one of the most serious challenges facing our democracy right now. So now that Mr. Mueller's testimony has come and gone, what comes next? Joining us with some insight is Democratic Congressman Jamie Raskin of Maryland. He's a member of the House Judiciary Committee, so he questioned Mueller earlier this week. He's also a member of the Progressive Caucus. Great to have you, sir.
Good morning.
So let's start with that question. Mueller testified. What does the Democratic Caucus do next?
Well, there's some specific things that we need to follow up with in terms of the Mueller investigation. We need to get Don McGahn to come and testify before our committee. The administration is fighting that. It's unacceptable. Everybody owes their honest, truthful, present, personal testimony to Congress. And we're not going to allow them to get away with a phony claim of executive immunity, which they've made up. We also need the underlying grand jury materials, the 6E materials, and we intend to get those in court. More broadly, I think we need to broaden out the investigation. So it's not just about the limited finite number of things that were considered in the Mueller investigation. Remember, President Trump said he would blow the whole thing up if it went to his finances, but I think that tells us precisely where we do need to go.
So Congressman, I mean, the grand jury material, McGahn, I mean, all of this just seems to almost not trust the special counsel to include that information damaging to the president in his report. Like, what is the necessity of this? You had the special counsel before; it was largely a dud. I mean, that's how it's been perceived. What is the necessity of doing this?
Well, first of all, I of course resist your characterization of our hearing as a dud. I think it was a comprehensive articulation of everything that's in the report, including 10 different episodes of presidential obstruction of justice and a very detailed accounting of the enthusiastic embrace of Donald Trump and his campaign of the systematic and sweeping attack on our election in 2016. So you can call it a dud, I suppose, if you're talking about Broadway values or something. But if you're looking at the Constitution, I think it was a very emphatic step forward in terms of our understanding of criminal misconduct in the administration.
Right,
but
Congressman,
in any event,
but the point of the hearing was because the contention was that not enough people had read the report, so they wanted to hear it directly from Robert Mueller himself. He said exactly what was in the report. It doesn't appear to have changed the needle. If anything, it seems to have been publicly received the opposite of what you wanted. And so I'm really just asking, I mean, what is the point of continuing going further? That's what I just don't understand.
Well, I think 5 more of our colleagues came out to call for an explicit impeachment inquiry since Mueller's appearance. And look, you know, we were dealing with Attorney General Barr and Donald Trump's mischaracterization of the contents of the report for months. They're sandbagging Congress. They're pulling the wool over the eyes of the American people, which is what prompted Special Counsel Mueller to write not 1 but 2 letters of protest about the confusion that was being left by the Attorney General. But the point is this, that there are specific allegations of criminal misconduct, high crimes and misdemeanors, outlined in the report, and there are some critical figures we need to hear from, including Don McGahn, the White House counsel, who was ordered directly by President Trump to go and fire the special counsel. That's something that we need to hear. But look, more broadly, I think America understands that this presidency has been a money-making operation from day one. This president continues to collect millions of dollars from foreign governments. At least 24 different foreign governments have filled his pockets through the Trump hotels, the office tower, the golf courses. It's been a money-making operation from the beginning, and we need to have a full and complete understanding of what has taken place, which is why we are demanding the president's taxes, which he promised to the American people years ago, and which every other American president in our lifetime has turned over. So we're going to get to the bottom of this, and we want the American people to know that the Article 1 branch, that Congress is indeed in the driver's seat, and we are not going to accept high crimes and misdemeanors coming out of this president.
Got it.
Congressman, yesterday, your colleague, Congressman Schiff, said we need to be realistic and that at this point, and the only way that Trump is leaving office is by being voted out. Do you agree with that? And when does the timeline, sort of the window for pursuing impeachment, close?
Well, my colleague may have powers of clairvoyance that I don't enjoy, so I don't know exactly what's going to happen. All that I can do is my constitutional duty, and I've sworn an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that's what I'm going to do, and I know that's what my colleagues on the House Judiciary Committee are pledged to do. Obviously, it's a mixed question of law and politics. According to the Constitution, high crimes and misdemeanors is the standard, but it's reposed in Congress, not in the court. So we've got to take into account the electoral calendar as well as other items on the public agenda. And we've been moving forward, as we did by passing a $15 minimum wage bill this past week. We continue to try to make legislative progress against all of the obstruction we're getting from Mitch McConnell in the Senate. But in any event, we will conduct our oversight responsibilities. We will not run away from that. I think it does have to happen in 2019, so we're not right in the thick of the election season. But there's always another election in America, and that's not reason for us not to do our jobs.
Okay. So, Congressman, I know you're also passionate about something going on at the border. You questioned Chief Brian Hastings about HIV status and asylum seekers. Let's take a listen first to your questioning, and then we'll get your response.
If a mother or father has HIV positive status, is that alone enough to justify separation from their child?
It is. It's a communicable disease under the guidance.
The flu is communicable. Would we separate parents from kids if a mom or dad had the flu?
We are not, sir.
Congressman, you've been outraged by this. Tell us, are you taking any steps in order to prevent this? What is the updated status?
Well, I think it's an outrageous situation. I mean, in the United States of America, we don't take people's children away from them because they have a medical condition, unless somehow, because of the parent's medical condition, unless somehow it's a direct, immediate threat to the kids. And we certainly don't take away children because a mother or a father is HIV positive. So I now have mixed signals from the administration about what their policy is on this. We did have a report, a tragic report, of a father who was HIV positive who had his 3 daughters removed from him at the border after the mother had already died of AIDS. And we believe that they've never been reunited, and that's what prompted me to ask the question. So we have written a letter to try to get some clarity from the administration about what the policy is, and there are a lot of protests taking place to a really inhumane, brutal, cruel policy, if that's in fact what's going on.
And do you know, is that a long-standing policy? Is it new under this administration? Do we have any insight there?
Well, the zero tolerance policy was one of trying to deter immigration at the border by just removing children from their parents categorically. That was struck down by the courts, but then they came forward and said, all right, we will only remove kids from their parents if they're a criminal danger or there's a medical danger. But medical danger cannot simply be HIV positive status. And the other thing I asked about was, we had a report that kids were removed from a mom because she had had a marijuana conviction 8 or 9 years before. And again, that hardly seems to be a defensible posture. That doesn't make the mother a threat to the kids. So we're talking about a basic constitutional right here. In America, we don't take kids away from parents. That is an Orwellian totalitarian policy. And I really hope the administration will move quickly today to disavow it and say this will not happen anymore.
Sure. Final question for you, sir. I mean, does it concern you that there are people arriving at the border with communicable diseases? It seems concerning to a lot of people. Yeah, of course it is. And the Center for Disease Control issued a guidance about this in 2010. There are certain communicable diseases you cannot enter America with. And there's a list of them, but HIV positive status is not one of them. In other words, we understand that that is not an easily communicable disease. It's obviously only through intimate contact. That's the primary
mode of transmission, which is why we don't remove kids from their parents because of it, because the parents are not posing a physical danger to their children at that point.
Got it. Well, thank you so much for joining us, sir. We
Congressman.
appreciate it.
Glad to have you.
Thanks so much for having me.
Next on Rising, Senator Tulsi Gabbard is taking on big tech. She says Google is meddling in the 2020 election.
Very interesting. A Fox News poll takes on the president's recent tweets with some surprising results. Team Rising is next to dig into all that.